I'm actually heading to Alabama for the Eminence promotions. I got my son grappling, and we're gonna do some commentating and stuff.
Cool, man. That's awesome. David, you want to start us off?
Yeah, I guess getting right into it. You got any fight news for 2024 yet, or anything in the works so far?
Man, believe it or not, nothing yet. But I'm just being patient, healing little minor injuries that I have. Trying to train every day, trying to stay in shape. So whenever the call happens, I definitely believe it'll be something good. It'll be something worth waiting on. So, but yeah, you never know, man. They had a little rumor come up, me fighting Vince Pichel on an April 27th card, which is definitely a fight I could see the UFC making, but no real truth to it. I don't know if somebody just put the card together. I know a few fights that they put together was legit, but man, you never know who's getting some inside information of Danawhite and the UFC's war room. So sometimes you just never know. I might find out on freaking social media before anybody tells me about a fight. So you never know.
So how does that work from your side of so does he stay in contact with you, Hunter Campbell and all of them, or do you just last minute they'll reach out to you and say, hey, this is what we got. What do you think?
They mostly stay in contact with my manager, and they don't really contact me or anything. My manager, Sucker Punch Entertainment, Brian Butler, Brian Hamper, Chris Creech. The UFC, I get a hold of them, let them know what they got for me. They'll call me and say, hey, check your emails. This guy on this date.
Cool. And what about UFC 300? Would that be something you'd like to be a part of, or?
Absolutely. I mean, why not? It's gonna be a hell of a card. So it's gonna be one of these hard cards to try to win a bonus on. But my overall goal is just winning a fight, not necessarily a bonus. But a fight that definitely makes sense for UFC 300 is Jim Miller, man. Dana White's already come out and said he'll be on the card. I think that'll be a very interesting matchup. Besides getting Paddy to Batty, I'll take Jim Miller.
What about Clay Guida? Would you fight him?
Oh, absolutely. 100%. Anybody like that, man, with those type of names, why not? Those are all dream fights for me. But at the same time, just like those guys, I may not have been in the UFC the whole time, but I've been fighting, almost just as long as a lot of those guys, and really, I'm not sure. I know Clay Guida's been in the UFC for a long time, but like I've been in the UFC, or I was in the UFC before probably 80% of the roster now. Mm-hmm. So, a lot of those fights make sense, and I would love to make one of those fights happen.
Cool. We're looking forward to it, and we would like to see you fight, a few times before UFC 300, but you never know, right?
Yeah. So my thing is, hopefully the Conor McGregor and the Michael Chandler for International Fight Week is true. It'd be cool to get a fight, sometime between, then and now, and then be able to jump right back around International Fight Week, because that's always a big card. UFC puts together the International Fight Week, the Expo, and all that cool stuff, man. That'd be cool to jump on that one too.
Oh yeah, for sure. David, you got anything?
Yeah, and I'm sure with all this, because he's pumping out, I guess, like socially, it looks like a lot, Dana, for 2024 already. I'm sure some of those fights aren't going to actually come together, those March and April. So it's realistically that you could fight a Trevor Peek or fight somebody, and then get on that June card, and that would be sick for the fans, I think.
Yeah, man, and Trevor Peek's another guy, very interesting fight. Like, I really like the style of fight that would be. I think I hold a huge advantage over every aspect of the game than Trevor Peek. But, I tried to make that fight happen. Trevor Peek actually hit me back and said he don't make enough money to fight me. So I took that as a compliment. And, if the fight doesn't happen with him, I mean, there's a roster full of guys. So I'm just ready to get something on the books, man, at this point. I don't really care who it is. Of course, I would like a name, though.
For sure.
And I know you brought up Paddy a little bit. Have you heard anything about that? Anything in detail? Has Paddy talked about it?
No, not really. He goes around me. I think the last guy he was talking about was Terrence McKinney, which is Terrence is a cool-ass dude, man. We hit each other back and forth on social media quite a bit. And that'll be an interesting fight for Paddy. I don't think that's the fight that Paddy wins either. But, I feel like Paddy's one of those guys that's really trying to pick and choose his fights. And for the majority, I think the UFC will listen to him because they want to keep trying to build him. He's a draw. And I think the UFC gives him fights that make sense for him.
Yeah, I'm just
going
to say.
I don't think I make sense for him.
I'm just gonna say it. I'm not even the biggest fan of Paddy. I mean, I don't I don't know what it is, but if you fight him, please win that fight.
Dude, I think Paddy's tough. I really do. But I mean, of course, he's being kind of catered to a little bit in the UFC. But and it's not only me. I don't think he's that good. I don't think he's even close to being a top 15 in the UFC. And I think where he's sitting right now would be a perfect fight to make.
He would whoop me and David, but yeah, I'm with you. I agree with you.
What were your thoughts about, I guess, that last fight versus Tony? Because I mean, for me as a fan and trying to remember back now, is like he looked pretty good coming out, but it's just like he put himself in some situations that it's like not necessarily Tony, but I was like somebody like you, especially with the grappling. I was like, and that's game right now, and in a little bit better fighter shape than Tony. I was like, man, he put himself in some dangerous situations to be up in that fight.
For sure. And and it's not to knock on Tony or anything, but this is not the same Tony that was in the UFC when he was the interim champion,
Right.
Tony's fell off a long ways, man, and you really hate to see that sometimes, but that's a fight that if you're going to be a top 15, a top 10, everybody else has thought Tony has pretty much put Tony away, and Paddy couldn't do it, So I think that says a lot right there.
Yeah, for sure. Let's change subjects a little bit if that's fine with you. What do you think about Chandler right now? What would you be thinking if you were in his shoes?
Man, look, keep doing what you're doing. Sometimes it's not a bad thing to play a waiting game. It all depends on, how eager or how bad you really want to fight, and how many guys can say they get this big payday against Conor McGregor? It's not a whole bunch of them. So, and there's, so many guys lined up that wish they can be fighting Conor. So, I think Chandler's doing a smart thing. This is really be the biggest thing that he can do for his career. So, yeah, man, look, and especially if that fight set and and holding out was worth it, then I think that's a smart move.
What do you think about them fighting at 185? Do you think it's going to be an advantage for Chandler, or
is it even realistic?
Yeah, I don't think the fight's going to be at 185. I think Conor's just kind of bullshitting a little bit. I think the fight will be at 170, which is still a weight class up for both of the guys. But the thing about it is, I don't think either guy really has an advantage, because I think they're probably both walking around 190 in the mid 190s. So it's not going to be like any guy's got a significant size advantage. One thing Chandler kind of brought up during our time on The Ultimate Fighter is, Conor hasn't been that big like his whole life or his whole career, versus Chandler saying, hey, this is me. This is what I walk around at my entire career. Conor's carrying all this weight, all this extra baggage that he, all the weight that he put on. How can he perform with it? So Chandler had a good point there, because you never know, man. Just because you put on a bunch of weight, sometimes your muscles are fatigued quicker or you'll gas out much quicker. So it's going to be interesting to see.
Yeah, Chandler
on the show, he had to be pushing 190 then, like especially the first couple episodes, and you could tell like that's always been Conor's problem too, is his tank. And then you add that with the injuries and coming back with Conor. That's why I thought like if it's at 185, let's just say, I think when it gets closer to time and he sees the way Mike's body looks and he's getting closer to time, he would want that fight at 170 for obvious reasons.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, dude, Chandler's a freaking tank. I mean, you see his workout every day. And it's like the dude, he don't skip a workout. He don't skip weight day, He don't skip leg day either. The dude's got some freaking thighs on him, man. But, I watched Chandler step on a scale on the Ultimate Fighter show, and he was like right at the 190s. So, I mean, I know for sure that he's a big guy, man. So even when he makes that cut to 155, he cuts a good bit of weight. So him not cutting that much weight might even make him perform that much better, and some would say, well, why don't he just move up to welterweight? Because even at welterweight, some of those guys are much bigger than Chandler. That's why Chandler's got to take that advantage to get down to 155. But being that he's fighting Conor, Conor's not a legit welterweight. He is a guy that fought at welterweight a few times, but he's not a real UFC welterweight. So that fight at 170 to me makes sense.
Yeah, Chandler's a machine, man. Like I said, I'm taking a lot of flack from my buddies and stuff because they all want Conor, but I'm just gonna say it. I just want Chandler to win that fight at this point. I mean, I don't know
For
what
sure,
David.
man.
I don't know about you, but
I do. I think it was obvious. I mean, if you watch the show and you kind of watch the demeanor of both guys, it's kind of obvious that Michael Chandler was the better guy on it. In and out of the, for me, it was like in and out of the cage as a coach, how involved he was with y'all, and then as the fighter in the cage, he's a hard guy not to like. I mean, and Connor too. Connor's polarizing, and there's, like you kind of said with Paddy, they're polarizing people, but when it comes down with it, you got guys that are willing to work, and Michael Chandler's one of those guys, and it's obvious. So definitely like to see him win.
Yeah, and like, I can vouch for Chandler. That dude is definitely one of the hardest working guys I've ever met in this game, and I mean, you see where he's at right now. So of course, that's what it takes to be where he's at. So of course I'm Team Chandler 100%.
cool, man. Have you talked to Jason Knight since his game bred fight with Randy Costa?
I was there that night. I think we ran into each other that night. I ain't really reached out to him too much. Talked to him a little bit maybe afterwards. He said he was good. That's just Jason, man. He don't care. He just, dude likes to fight. Doesn't care what happens to him in the fight. He just likes to fight.
Yeah, for sure. And I know we're talking about game bred. Do you think Masvidal is coming back to the UFC, or what's the deal with that?
Well, I think definitely it would be the UFC. The UFC ain't just gonna let him walk. He's got a contract. I don't think the UFC is gonna let him go make anybody else $1 million. But yeah, I'm sure he'll come back. Some guys just need a little bit of time to reflect on things. Of course, do I think Masvidal needs to come back? Probably not, man. I think he's doing good with game bred, but he's a draw, man. Anytime Masvidal's on a card, doesn't matter who he's fighting, it's going to be a draw. It's going to make you want to watch it. So, I think it's cool, man. Hopefully he comes back, gets a good matchup, and does the thing.
Yeah, I'm curious if they try to push him for the Leon fight and just, bump him up in front of everybody. We'll see what happens with that.
Yeah, which that fight should be hard to do, right? Because, I mean, Leon's a champion.
Mm-hmm.
Masvidal has lost his last couple fights. You can't just bring a guy in and just give him straight title shot. I think, if he comes in and he beats a top 10 guy, that might catapult him into a position to potentially fight Leon, or you never know. I don't think they've really set the welterweight title matchup now. I don't really know who's going to get the next crack at Edwards, but if he was to lose, then that fight can be for sure set up.
Oh yeah, for sure. And I don't know what it is with Bilal. I guess they don't want to give Bilal the title shot, is what it sounds like.
Man, I've seen a rumor. I think it was bullshit, but I've seen some kind of rumor. Like, remember when the UFC did a trade for Mighty Mouse for Ben Askren back in the day to one? I've seen something. I don't know if you guys seen this too, where they was going to try to trade Muhammad for Pitbull from Bellator. So I'm sure it was just bullshit, but it was like breaking news. I've seen on Instagram. I don't know who.
You never know, man. Yeah, I mean, that might be true.
Yeah,
that's what I'm saying. You never know. And then somebody posted like, damn, the UFC really does hate Bethel Muhammad. But I don't know, man. It'd be either Muhammad or Shavkat is going to get the title shot, I would think.
Yeah, Shavkat, that's a scary dude. He's definitely he's grown on me. So
yeah,
I'm looking forward to that.
He's good for sure.
For sure. David, you got anything to end us?
Yes, I see the shirt. How's your podcast been going so far?
Yeah, man. I mean, it's just something fun, I mean, of course, we're not huge yet, but it's making waves. Just something fun to do. We try to do an episode a week. Took off during the holidays, but like tonight, I got the guys that's going to be calling the fight for Eminence Promotions tonight on YouTube. I got my son grappling, and other than that, we'll be commentating. We're going to go down there now and do a couple episodes. We're going to run some podcasts inside the cage when we get there, and I'll be there in about 20 minutes, and we're going to run some podcasts. So it's cool, man. It's always fun just to sit around and talk fights or anything.
Cool,
That's
man.
what's up.
And we're trying to figure out the algorithm. I don't know about you, but you probably have the same issues as us. I don't know how the algorithm works on all these different sites because I feel like it changes so much, and that's another problem that we're having. But hopefully 2024 we figure it out and we can jack the numbers up a little bit.
Yeah,
so.
But man, I think really what it is, it's all about just catching attention, because what's funny is I have a 4-year-old, right? You guys have seen my 4-year-old. Well, he just turned 4 like this week. But my wife started him a TikTok, months ago. And all of a sudden he did a grappling match at 3 years old. And it was like a badass match. He actually lost, but he's fighting like 5 and 6 year olds. But I mean, he gave this kid hell, and that video blew up. Next thing you know, he's like TikTok famous. So I'm like, all right, cool. Well, she creates him a YouTube channel. Well, I guess everything connected with TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube. He's got like almost 8,000 subscribers on YouTube. I'm like, oh my damn!
He's doing better than all of us.
Like 300. I'm in the UFC. You know, he's got like 20-something thousand followers on TikTok. He's getting paid from TikTok, and I'm like, damn, man. But that's really what it's about. It's just about, you know, having something that catches somebody's eye that everybody starts sharing.
Yeah,
you know?
I agree.
And sometimes it's hard to do that.
Yeah, for sure. It just takes time too. So
Yeah.
I mean, like I said, we just have fun with it. That's why we do it. So
same here, man. Same here.
So, but anyways, we'll let you go, Kurt. We don't want to hold you up too long. So we appreciate you coming on.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, man.
Like always, yeah, appreciate it, man.
All right.
Anytime.
All right.
Well, have a safe drive and have fun tonight.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, man.
See you, man.
I'll take it easy.